Ever since I was a kid in school, I can remember loving history, and specifically European history. I remember reading about the conquests and civilizations of the Greek and Roman people and just absolutely loving the stories that came around their culture and their ways of life. Now, that being the case, it's probably a good reason why I love Eurogames. One of my favorite Eurogames has got to be Palazzo, a Renaissance-era building and set collection game. Palazzo is a set collection and auction game designed by Rainer Knizia. In it, players will compete to construct the most valuable palace. The higher the palace, and the more windows and doors it has, the more valuable it becomes. If you have the most valuable palace at the end of the game, you win. Each building tile that you will acquire on a turn is unique. When you build onto your palace, you can only build in increasing numerical increments. You can't have the same number floor in the same palace. The types of buildings can be mixed, and the number of windows and doors can vary. Players must immediately build tiles they acquire and can only do so on top of other tiles. You can rearrange later in the reconstruction phase. If you acquire a tile you do not want, you can place it in a discard pile after you purchase it. This is a good way to avoid negative points at game end. To buy tiles, you of course need money. There are 3 types of currency in Palazzo, and you must use the same type currency for each purchase. There are also wild currency cards, which are the only cards that can be mismatched with other currency. When buying, you can also play 3 identical cards to give you a base value of 15. On their turn, a player can do one of 3 things. You can take money, buy or auction a tile, or reconstruct your palaces. When taking money, players draw 1 more card than the number of players. He takes 2 of those cards, and then the other players take 1. There is no limit to the amount of money a player can hold. The next action a player can take is the buy or auction action. When a player does this, he draws the top 2 tiles from the current building stack and places them in the right place. The first one goes in the quarry with the corresponding amount of windows. The second goes in the material supply, which is the playing area in the middle. To purchase a tile in this area, a player must decide on buying 1 or 2 tiles. He then must pay the right amount for them. Tiles in the building supply are worth 10 minus the amount of tiles in that area. So in order to buy 2 of these tiles, a player must pay 12, 6 apiece. There is no change making in Palazzo, so you need to make sure a purchase is worth it for you. If a player decides to auction tiles instead of buying, he first moves the master builder. This guy helps you decide which tile goes where when placing tiles, but also which quarry will be auctioned. Wherever he lands, that's where the auction takes place. The player who started the auction uses this common bid card worth 3 money, and uses that as a starting bid. Players then compete for the current auction block. When you auction, you're competing for all of the tiles on any given quarry. The player who wins the auction pays all of his bid and builds the tiles immediately. Remember though, you can discard a tile if you want. The last thing a player can do on his turn is reconstruct his palaces. When doing so, he can take a single tile from any one of his towers and place it in or onto a palace, or even, again, discard it. We all know that buildings work that way. Bring it in. The game ends when this mosaic is completed by drawing its tiles out of the building stacks. At this point, players use this scorecard to count up the value of their palaces. The player with the most points at the end of the game wins. Now, Palazzo plays really quickly. I've even completed some 2-player games in about 30 minutes. So that being the case, you can play multiple times in one sitting. It's got really beautiful artwork, and it's a part of the Elia and Rio Grande bookshelf series that all look really nice end to end. So I definitely recommend picking up a copy. If you're looking for a good set collection game, recommend Palazzo.